day, everyone. Today we are going to start with an introduction to physics. We will be talking about high school physics series, secondary school. In this series, we'll focus on O-level secondary school physics, O-level physics to be precise. But we'll start this topic by way of introduction to physics. This whole physics series by way of introduction. Now, what do we mean by physics? What is physics? As we all know, our natural world. When we say the natural world, what do we mean? The world that we can perceive, we can see sometimes. We can see, we can perceive. The world that is visible to our eye and the likes. So that's what we mean by natural world. At the basic, let me just say that. Now, what do we now mean by physics? And before we go into the definition of physics, we also have to know the fact that physics is what we use to study the natural world, because physics itself is the study of natural phenomena. Physics is the study of natural phenomenon. So anything that we can see, anything that is natural, we study it with physics. Is an important science subject. Now, but this is not enough definition for physics. So what exactly do we mean by physics? Physics is the study of matter and energy and the relationship between them. So when we are talking of matter and energy, so for physics now, before we can do anything with physics, we'll be talking about what? We'll be talking of matter, I'll be talking of energy. So physics is that discipline that has to do with the study of matter and energy and the relationship between them. So we can safely say physics is the study of matter and energy and the relationship between them. So when we are talking of matter and energy and the relationship between them, we are talking of physics. Now, when we say matter, what do we mean? And when we say energy, what do we mean? So now, what do we mean by matter? We know matter as anything that has mass and occupies space. That is matter. Anything that has mass and occupies space. So matter is anything that has mass and occupies space. Now, when we say energy, what do we mean by energy? Energy is the ability to do work. Ability to do work. So now, how can we now study matter and energy, and what is the relationship between matter and energy? So these are what we are going to what we'll be looking at in our study of physics. Now, we have looked at the definition of physics, so it is good to know the major branch of physics, major subdivision of physics. So now, we have physics. Now, under physics, we have two major subdivisions. We have classical physics, and we have modern physics. Those are the major subdivision of physics. Physics can be subdivided into classical physics and modern physics. Now, when we say classical physics, what do we mean? Before the 20th century, our way of viewing the world, the natural world, exactly, was a little bit different from our way of viewing the natural world now. Of course, we are still making use of all the ideas of classical physics in this our modern world. So in the before the 20th century, we used to believe that everything to be known about physics had already been known. Yeah, we have the laws of classical thermodynamics well established. We have classical mechanics, well established, and the likes. So now when we talk of classical physics, what do we mean? Classical physics has to do with the study of natural phenomenon at the macro scale. The physics of the large objects, that is classical physics. Anything that has to do with large objects at the macro scale. We any object that we study at the macro scale is classical physics. We will use the laws of classical physics for such objects. Now, when we say macro scale, what do we mean? We are talking of galaxies, the motion of the galaxies, the motion of the planets, everything that is visible. We use classical physics to study them. So now we can safely divide classical physics as the study of large objects. That is macro scale. Macro scale. The study of large objects at a speed that is much less than the speed of light. So the study of very large objects, especially objects that are moving at a speed that is much less than the speed of light, we use classical physics to model such objects. Now, when we are talking of the speed of light, what do we mean? When we say speed of light, what do we mean by the speed of light? Now, our laws of physics that we have of today makes us to understand that nothing can move beyond the speed of light. Yeah, speed of light is the ultimate speed limit. The speed of light is the ultimate speed limit, and we believe that nothing can move beyond the speed of light. And what is even the speed of light? The speed of light is actually speed of light. The speed of light is actually approximately 3 times 10 raised per 8 meters per second. That's the speed of light. It's approximately 3 times 10 raised per 8 meters per second. Nothing can move beyond the speed of light. So any large object that is moving with a speed that is much less than the speed of light can be viewed using the laws of classical physics. Let's talk about the subdivision of classical physics. Majorly, classical physics has 4 subdivisions. Of course, yeah, it may be more than that, but majorly it has 4 subdivisions. Under classical physics, we have classical mechanics. We have what? We have thermodynamics. We have what? We have electromagnetism. And we have what? We have wave and optics. Of course, this wave and optics can still find some of its roots in electromagnetism anyway. So now, because even electromagnetism itself is also we have what we call the electromagnetic wave. So we can simply say that even this wave and optics, can still find its or let me just say electromagnetism can find its roots in waves and optics anyway. So now, when we say classical mechanics, what are we talking about? Of course, from the definition of classical physics, but now we can safely define what classical mechanics is. We already know that classical physics has to do with the world of the macro scale, world of the large objects. Now, when we say mechanics, what do we mean by mechanics? Mechanics has to do with motion. So the classical there makes it to be macro scale. We can say that macro scale motion, that is the motion of large objects that are moving at a speed that is much less than the speed of light. So such objects are governed by the laws of classical mechanics. So now we can say that classical mechanics has to do with the study of the motion of large objects at a speed much less than the speed of light. So that is classical mechanics. When we are talking of large objects moving at a speed that is much less than the speed of light, we are talking of classical mechanics. Now, thermodynamics. What do we mean by thermodynamics? Now, thermo means heat, and dynamics also means motion. So, literally, we can say that thermo has to do with the motion of heat. Of course, that's not the complete definition of what thermodynamics is, but we can literally say that thermodynamics has to do with the study of the motion of heat. But safely, we can say that thermodynamics has to do with the study of heat and temperature, the motion, and the relationship between them. So that is thermodynamics. Now the third one, electromagnetism. Electromagnetism. Now what do we mean by electromagnetism? We will see here electro. If we split this into two, we have electro and we have magnetism. Electro from electricity and magnetism. So electromagnetism has to do with two things, electricity and magnetism. So we are talking of the study of electricity and magnetism. Now, before many years ago, let me just say like 2 centuries ago, electricity and magnetism are two separate fields. And in fact, nobody knew that there was even any relationship between electricity and magnetism. People used to believe that electricity and magnetism are different phenomena that can be used to explain nature. But now, we know that electricity and magnetism are one and the same. So work of notable scientists like James Clerk Maxwell and especially Michael Faraday and James Clerk Maxwell helps us to understand that electricity and magnetism are one and the same. So now, let's talk about wave and optics. Of course, we said earlier on that we have what we call the electromagnetic wave. Now, when we say wave, what is wave? Wave is any disturbance that passes through a medium that is also causing vibration. Now, optics is an example of one part of waves also. Optics has to do with the study of light. So these are the major subdivision of classical physics. Now we are also going to move to the second part. We'll move to the subdivision of modern physics. All right. Now let's look at the subdivision of modern physics. Now, what do we mean by modern physics actually? Modern physics started in the 20th century as a result of some anomalies in electromagnetism. So that was one of the reasons for the origin of modern physics. Not electromagnetism alone, but is the most important thing that led to modern physics. Now, modern physics itself is subdivided into majorly we have relativity, and we have quantum physics. So modern physics, quantum physics, or quantum mechanics, So those are the major subdivision of modern physics. Now, having a look at the subdivision of modern physics, we said modern physics is subdivided into relativity and quantum mechanics. Now let's look at relativity. When we say relativity, we always hear this word. Things in nature are relative. It is actually true. Now, when we say relativity, what do we mean? We can view relativity as an addition of classical physics, classical mechanics. Let me just see, or better still, we can see classical physics or classical mechanics rather as an edition of relativity, because relativity itself is the full description of objects on the macro scale rather. Because now when we are talking of relativity has to do with the study of motion of large objects. The only difference is now is that this large object we are talking about are moving with a speed that is close to the speed of light, unlike that of classical mechanics that are moving with a speed that is much less than the speed of light. So that's the difference, and it is the true description of objects at the large scale actually. So now relativity is the study of objects at the macro scale. When we say macro scale, we are talking of objects objects that are very, very large. So those are objects at macro scale, moving at a speed much close to the speed of light, And as I've said earlier on, I said that the speed of light is the ultimate speed limit. Nothing can move beyond the speed of light. So usually we use c to represent the speed of light, and we use v usually to represent any other speed. So that is that of relativity. Now, what of quantum mechanics? Now, when we say quantum mechanics, what do we mean? Quantum mechanics has to do with study of objects at the micro scale, that is infinitesimally small objects. The study of infinitesimally small objects, that is quantum mechanics. So we know mechanics as motion, so we can say that quantum mechanics is a study of the motion of infinitesimally small objects. The study of the motion of infinitesimally small objects at high speed close to the speed of light, that is quantum mechanics. So these are the subdivision of modern physics: relativity and quantum mechanics. Now we are going to look at some other branches of physics apart from the major branches of physics that we have looked at. We are going to look at some other. Let's look at some other aspects of physics. Do I call them branches of physics or field of physics? Anyway, call it anything, but I see them as other aspects of physics. We have what we call the particle physics. We have astronomy and cosmology. We have medical physics. We have engineering physics. We have biophysics. We have geophysics. We have econophysics and lots more. When we say econophysics, it has to do with the study of economics using physics. There is a new aspect of physics or new area of physics. How we can use the theory of physics to model economical things or economic theory, stuffs like that. So that's what we talk about in